Greed, exploitation. What are the two things that come to mind when you hear these words? For me personally, it's about power, but misused. Unfortunately, a typical occurrence. When you become awakened to the system as a whole, it totally destroys your notion that America runneth on Duncan. Actually, it runneth on greed. It's said that power corrupts, and beyond that, on occasion, when powerful people get bored, the tendency for them to do really stupid things while blinded by their power rises exponentially. Today I want to explore this issue while analyzing one of my favorite games I have ever played, Persona 5. Though the psyche of any of these characters could be dove into, I want to focus on Yusuke Kitagawa the most because he is someone who has artistic purity and integrity, which is something that I highly value in my own life and relate to like crazy. Why focus on an artist character though? Well, my friends, because artists are sometimes some of the most exploited people in society, that's why. First, I need to throw down some context though. So what is Persona 5? Other than being a game in the Persona series, which my sis Media Knight has told me countless times throughout the years that I need to play, it holds one of the most powerful stories I have ever come across in any video game. The game starts with our hero, Joker, who is falsely accused of assault and then transferred to Shujin Academy in Tokyo for his probation. At Shujin, he befriends a few people, and together they discover a metaverse where they can access the palaces or minds of corrupted adults. In these palaces, which are manifestations of the evil in their hearts, they have the opportunity to infiltrate them and steal the palace's treasure. This completely transforms the hearts and minds of the corrupted adults in real life, and they typically confess their crimes to the public at large. As a result, Joker's crew forms the Phantom Thieves, and they try to find as many corrupt adults as possible to change their hearts and enact justice in the world where the police won't make an effort. Persona 5 is an impeccable tale that dives into justice, rebellion, friendship, and the power of personal growth. After some things that I've experienced in my own life, the idea of the Phantom Thieves and the retribution surrounding their operations is something I resonate with a lot, especially when it comes to the character of Yusuke Kitagawa. I'll be real, when Yusuke was first introduced in the game, I didn't like him one bit. I found him creepy. He is portrayed as a talented but eccentric artist who wants to paint on one of the other main characters in the Phantom Thieves nude. Because of his initially stoic and mysterious nature, it comes across as super weird. However, when you find out more about his character as the story progresses, you find that Yusuke did in fact have the purest of intentions as an artist. Yusuke is a character I respect a ton because of his attention to artistic integrity. He is truly someone who is chasing after pure beauty in art, and I really resonate with that as an artist myself who hasn't been corrupted by just using their art to try and win capitalism. As we get to know Yusuke more, we find out that a famous artist in Tokyo named Madarame took him in after the death of his mother. Because of this, Yusuke has nothing but pure respect for Madarame as both a guardian and a mentor. Unfortunately, the Phantom Thieves uncover that Madarame has been exploiting his students for their talent and passing it off as his own work. This includes a really important painting that Yusuke is obsessed with called Sayuri. We find out that Yusuke's late mother painted the piece, but Madarame claimed it as his own to exploit him for profit. When confronted with this information, Yusuke cannot believe it, and even gets defensive against the Phantom Thieves, not wanting to believe himself that someone took him in when he was in a time of need would do this to him and his peers. This is a classic depiction of Stockholm Syndrome. However, when proven that it is indeed the case, Yusuke gives in and joins the Phantom Thieves. He becomes instrumental in slaying Shadow Madarame in the metaverse. Before he is defeated, however, Shadow Madarame taunts the Phantom Thieves. The palace's treasure is the true form of the Sayuri, which shows the woman in the painting actually holding a baby. Yusuke deduces that his mother's death was not just an accident. Yusuke's mother created the painting to immortalize her love for her son, but when Madarame saw it, he decided to claim it as his own. This absolutely fuels Yusuke's ill will towards him, and he thanks Madarame for giving him no reason to forgive him. After Shadow Madarame is defeated, and upon his confession in the real world, justice is served, and Yusuke even gets the Sayuri painting back. Yusuke comes to terms with the fact that Sayuri is just a made-up name for the piece, and probably not his mother's actual name, as using her name in the real world would have exposed the scam. After these events, Yusuke decides to permanently join the Phantom Thieves to pursue justice and truth. He begins to open up emotionally and socially, developing deeper friendships with the other members of the group, which helps him to break out of his artistic rut and explore new creative pathways. In his character development arc, trust becomes a central theme. I mean, how would you react to finding out your mentor was directly exploiting you for profit? As he spends more time with the group, it becomes easier for him to become transparent about his thoughts and feelings. This extends to seeing the good in people despite his past traumas, which I find to be something we should all look up to. Yusuke confronts his pain and uses it to drive his art's evolution forward, embracing his own artistic identity to discover inspiration in the most unlikely of avenues, and he even uses it to challenge societal norms. Lastly, Yusuke uses his past trauma in a way to seek out justice and prevent the pain he experienced in his life from happening to others. His development as a person is a critical part of Persona 5, and watching him transform from a reserved and isolated artist to a highly engaged member of the group is inspiring, to say the least. But other than the good anecdotes of his personality, why bring this up? Well, in the real world, things like this happen more than you know, and maybe more than you even want to know. In my previous employment venture, before I quit to pursue music and art full-time, I worked for an executive outplacement firm. This consisted of working with executive leaders who had left their company for whatever reason, be it they were let go, wanted to pursue something else in their field, or move to a completely different industry. I started by doing data entry for the company, and eventually switched to helping out with resumes and LinkedIn profiles, something that would completely open my eyes to the true nature of commerce in the modern world. Sadly, I am under an NDA and cannot share any specific details without being sued. Let's just put it this way though. I worked with executives of companies you have definitely heard of. Some of the things I had to write about were kind of cool, no doubt. As I mentioned in my last video, however, towards the end of my job, it took a turn for the worst, and I began to work with people that awakened me to the sheer amount of exploitation required to run a business at that level. I felt like some of the things I heard and had to write about as though they were a good thing were incredibly unethical, and I found them to be absolutely disgusting. Not only this, the level of candidate we worked with most of the time treated me as though I was just the help. It was typically very disrespectful. Now don't get me wrong, I met about 5 or 6 executives in this job that I loved and could even call today if I needed some advice in business. These are people who realize their privilege and are using their wealth for good in the world, and I have nothing but respect for those people. Most of the time though, this was not the case, as I worked with hundreds of these people. Around the same time in my life, I began to see more and more content online about late-stage capitalism and the suffering of my class, the working class, which I conveniently named my party on Persona 5. I felt guilty every single day about what I was doing, and the system I was supporting at the elite level. All that corporate America cares about is profit at the end of the day, so whatever these people had to do to make the company money was what they did. Hearing and writing about the exploitation of workers every day like it was a good thing made me feel absolutely sick to my stomach, and my mental health declined to an extreme low. I became an insufferably angry person, and those who interacted with me definitely noticed, including my wife. Not only was I doing this job I hated, feeling like I was contributing bad to the world, but it was taking away from me doing what I felt like I was meant to do my whole life, you know, music. Any job would have done that though, and this is not a reflection of my boss or my team at this company. They are exceptional people that I actually do consider family. But facts are facts, and I was pissed every single day. Since I'm not allowed to give examples from my time with this company, I'll brush upon the CEO of Roblox since I never worked with them. They are absolutely similar to Madarame, or even Kaneshiro, Persona 5's third boss. Kaneshiro exploits high school kids into delivering unmarked envelopes filled with drugs and blackmails them to keep them quiet for his own profit. Now, I'm over the age of 30, so I don't play Roblox. Yet, thanks to an investigative report by More Perfect Union, a quick search on their CEO will reveal a robust, covert child labor ring disguised as a video game. Did you know that these executives are getting away with unchecked exploitation because they know that their audience, mostly children, doesn't have power, and that mainstream media and legislators aren't paying attention? This is eerily similar to Kaneshiro, who said about the students he was exploiting right before the boss fight, they're naive, they're reckless, and on top of that, they don't even realize how stupid they are. Now, I couldn't just sit back and not cash in on one of these idiots, right? As a social platform for children, Roblox is an arena where users make games that they hope others will play on the platform. Most users of Roblox are under 9 years old, and another 29% are 9 to 12 years old. The more popular your game is, the more money you make on the platform. This is measured in Robux, which is the game's in-game currency. Roblox takes roughly 70% of revenue from users that publish games or cosmetic items. The catch is that when you pay $1, you get 100 Robux in return. However, when you get paid, that same 100 Robux becomes 35 cents after the company takes their cut. So to anyone that has gotten mad at Apple for taking a 30% cut of App Store revenue from developers, just be lucky you're not an exploited child on Roblox. These shady business practices have yielded $2.4 billion for Roblox's early revenue, ending on June 30th, 2023. What makes it worse is that Roblox not only makes it difficult to cash out for real money with its $300 threshold, but they also make it incredibly hard for you to get your game noticed in the first place. Since there are about 50 million games on the platform, and counting, you have to bid for advertising. These bids, however, have no guarantee of your game ever being seen, so that money will often just vanish into the pockets of Roblox executives. A lot of this reminds me of Madarame's exploitation of his art students, also children, to make profits for himself, and then using their own positions in society against them to continue the exploitation. This would make Yusuke's blood boil. The Roblox Talent Hub is another problem area. It's a job board that pays out ridiculously low rates to recruit kids 13 years or older for what is essentially a part-time job. The payments are sometimes as low as 200 Robux, which, remember, if cashed out, would be 70 cents after Roblox's troll toll. The game also includes casinos where users can gamble their Robux, virtual stores like Walmart with useless digital products for sale, scams, and adult predators that happen in-game. Roblox seems like a paradise for thieves to prey on children. This would be illegal if practiced in real life, but because it's on the internet, somehow these people can get away with it. In fact, the Roblox CEO earned $232 million last year on the backs of child labor. And hearing him talk about earnings on newscasts makes me sick. I honestly don't even actually care that these children are mostly spending their parents' money either. Not all are. Thus, as far as executives I have worked with, the Roblox CEO is the absolute worst I have ever seen, and they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. But what's funny is they probably are not. And I'm just a YouTuber and a DJ with a measly 2,500 subscribers after all, so I know they don't care about what I'm saying. They'll never even hear this. I do want to say though, that I know your type, because I've worked with hundreds of people like you. I guess by the standards of late stage capitalism, you are objectively a brilliant business person, but the power that you have acquired due to your immense wealth has blinded you. By the standards of common decency, you make me want to vomit. Since my channel is primarily about video games, I do want to make a note that executives like you are ruining the gaming world. It's all about short-term profits for you now instead of fun for your users, which is what gaming should be about. No longer do we buy a game that was quality tested and polished, but we buy a game that is utter shit and needs hundreds of dollars of DLC to be purchased in order to enjoy it. Back in my day, when I bought a game, it was complete on day one. I owned it, and it didn't become a money pit of microtransactions that went straight to executives and shareholders. Because believe me, none of that goes to the workers, unless, say, it's a small indie game made by a company that has equitable compensation for all parties involved. Yes, life is gray, there are always exceptions. Let's have enough common sense to realize this off the get-go. This is one reason I still really respect Nintendo, despite the fact that you guys need to release your soundtracks. Nintendo also has DLC, I mean, it's 2023 and all, but last time I checked, they don't make games like Diablo 4 now, do they? Pay-to-win content behind paywalls and microtransactions are horseshit. I might sound like a boomer here, but I don't really care. Fight me. Executives and decision makers that ruin games for the user to extract as much profit as possible are no better than Kaneshiro. And don't even get me started on the industry's treatment of composers and voice actors in video games. Do Doom Eternal and Bayonetta 3 ring a bell? This, friends, is why greed must be avoided if we want to take control of our mental health and live above reproach in society. However, greed blinds, and its effects can literally touch anyone. To be completely transparent, transparent here. There was even a time in my own life that I became super money hungry, but in a different sense, which I touched on in a previous video. I traded a lot in the stock market during the COVID pandemic and had a target of 300K in my mind to live off of dividends with ticker symbol QILD and be able to do art without any financial worries in my life. I never even got close to making this much with trading, but I definitely hit a few amazing trades that did drastically increase my account's value. As mentioned previously though, my greed got the best of me, and when I should have sold, I held, thinking I would make more money. I lost most of the money I made, and the person I became during this time is not something I'm proud of. In a way, I'm glad these things happened and that I changed, as now I can be hyper aware of greed. Also, I'm not living off dividends, which I suppose is part of the problem in society if you trace it back to workers only receiving benefits like this in rare circumstances. The overarching point is that greed can change anyone. Sure, I wasn't exploiting anyone on a grand scale, like someone making $232 million off of child labor, but I'm still glad I'm not the person I was a couple years ago. All that said, I really wish the Phantom Thieves existed in real life to be able to change the hearts of corrupt people where law enforcement doesn't care. But as they don't, what can we do? I think it is beneficial to take a page out of the old "take a look at yourself and make a change" chapter of life's book, since the systemic problems of our society prevent and even prohibit normal people from enacting any kind of change on a grand scale without billions of dollars to buy the government. We must look inward and make moves to minimize greed and exploitative behavior in our own lives. Minimizing greed has to do with living in a state of contentment. Of course, this is something that ebbs and flows throughout time, but there are a few things we can do to minimize greed in our lives. The first thing I would point out is to become a more giving person, and doing so in such a manner that you expect nothing in return. Giving without attachment to the outcome can combat a greedy mentality. Lending your time, resources, or kindness to those in need can literally be transformative. This is something to do if you have the means and resources to do so. I know not everyone does, but this should, of course, be common sense. The second is to reflect on impermanence and let that lead you to contentment with what you currently possess. Constantly trying to keep up with the Joneses is one of the worst ways to spend your life. It doesn't lead to anything meaningful, especially when you acquire such possessions and realize that it's all in vain. When we realize that all things are impermanent, as stated in my video about time travel, it helps with reducing attachment to anything, including wealth. All things will change, and that is the only constant in life. The last thing I want to mention, and this is something I personally need to get better at, is meditation. A consistent practice of mindfulness will help you to become more self-aware of desires and attachments in life. You'll realize that it's really easy to live within your means if you try enjoying all things in moderation. Coupled with the fact that all things are impermanent, our desires will decrease, and we can become even more giving to reduce any semblance of greed that we had. One of my favorite quotes about this subject comes from an interview on MTV with Tupac Shakur before he was assassinated. You never thought I'd be quoting Tupac in a video about Persona 5, but here we are. This is a long quote that I even split up into 3 parts, so bear with me. I mean, can you imagine somebody having $32 million? $32 million, and this person has nothing. And you can sleep? You can go to the movies? These are the type of people that get humanitarian awards. Millionaires. How can they be humanitarians by the fact that they're millionaires? And there's so many poor people. Shows how inhumane they are. If they earned it, I think that's good. I think they deserve it. But even if you earned it, you still owe. Or look, okay, I know you're rich. I know you got $40 billion, but can you just keep it to one house? You only need one house. And if you only got 2 kids, can you just keep it to 2 rooms? I mean, why have 52 rooms and you know there's somebody with no room? It just don't make sense to me. It don't. Tupac Shakur's wise words align with those of Morgana of Persona 5. That Kaneshiro truly was an evil stain on society. Same with Kamoshida and Madarame too. They hurt and exploited others just to satisfy their desires. Still, there were people around who noticed their terrible deeds, weren't there? I wonder why they turned a blind eye. Why doesn't anyone help? Great question, Morgana. I myself often wonder why no one helps. It's almost like the only class in society is in cahoots, or that capitalism is functioning exactly as it's meant to. Those with the power and insane amounts of resources in our society really should help, shouldn't they? I suppose my look at myself and make a change solution is one that helps me cope with the fact that I cannot make any systemic changes by myself. I don't know though. What do you think? In addition, living a life free of exploitation is a complex and nuanced matter that is very much gray, not black and white. After all, the technology being used to run the world and that I'm using to write and film this video could largely said to be built on the backs of exploited people. Where then do we draw the line? Of course, we could always sell everything we have and move to the woods, off grid, and live a sustainable lifestyle, but that's not an option for most people. Even if you did, the solar panels and water tank you would have to acquire to survive off grid were, you guessed it, most likely made off the backs of exploited people. Again, I ask, where do we draw the line? I'm mostly asking this because I want to have a conversation, and I honestly don't know the answers myself. We can try to be ethical consumers that are mindful of where the products we consume come from. We can support fair trade, prioritize workers' rights and the benefits that come from unions, reduce our consumption overall, and be advocates for change in society when something comes to our attention that is in direct exploitation of other humans. Heck, we can even boycott corporations that participate in unethical business practices and support ethical tech. These are all good things, yes, but defining exploitation is built upon cultural, legal, and ethical perspectives, all of which vary in this gray world we live in. Cultural parameters, especially, are intriguing to me. What is right in one culture is absolutely wrong in another, and I understand the importance we should place on being culturally sensitive and respectful to advocate for universal principles of human dignity. Society has to systemically change, though, in order for exploitation to go away entirely. In this world we exist in, something will always be built upon the back of someone else. Until then, look for ways that you can minimize it directly and become comfortable with changing your mind and behavior when you find out that your actions may be directly harming someone else. At the end of the day, no matter how much work we do to minimize exploitation in our own lives due to our late-stage capitalist society, most of us are also being actively exploited. I know for a fact that you are getting paid a minute percentage of the revenue you bring into your company. So my message here is to not let the fact that you are being exploited annihilate your zeal for life. Once more, we should look towards the example of Yusuke Kitagawa. Despite Madarame's exploitation, and even in the face of criticism of his artwork, Yusuke keeps going. He perseveres, looks inward to contemplate his place in the world even further, and never lets anything stop him from following his passion. What does that look like in practice, though? It's good to have ideals to look towards, but how can we do this when so many of us are living to work rather than working to live? Well, change is key. Maybe you are in a spot in life where you absolutely cannot change your situation, though. This does indeed happen, but I think it's very rare, especially in this modern age. For example, the job that I just left to pursue music and creator life made my mental health suffer for about 3 to 4 years. I couldn't change my situation for a long time without things getting worse due to the fact that I was tagging along with my wife for her traveling job. I didn't know what else I could possibly do as a job to keep up with that lifestyle of moving every 6 months or so with her. Yet once I found a window of opportunity, I made swift changes as quickly as possible, and now I'm happier than I've ever been, despite making less money. Kaneshiro wouldn't understand that making less money could lead to happiness if he tried, but I'm here to tell you that I'm living proof. It's almost like pursuing good in the world rather than vainly fighting for number go up is a bit more fulfilling, eh? If you are in an exploitative situation that is destroying your mental health, really think and ask yourself if there's anything you can do to change your surroundings. Again, I understand having to wait a while to be able to make a drastic change, but there will always be micro changes we can find in life to help our situation. On the other hand, if it's revealed to you that something you are doing or have done is exploiting someone else, try to refrain from that behavior. It seems like the people in charge, the police, teachers, teachers, and most adults in the society of Persona 5 question the tactics of the Phantom Thieves. They initially do not believe in them, and even when it becomes clear that they should, they don't agree with their methodologies. It's almost condescending in a way, like they'd rather have these criminals get away with what they're doing than have society be reformed, and I might add, in a non-violent manner. Don't be like these people. Be your own Phantom Thief, albeit also in a non-violent fashion. It takes setting an example for change to occur at a large scale, and sometimes we even need to set an example for people in charge. After all, any win towards reducing exploitation is a net positive, even if it's merely starting the conversation in order to raise awareness. Of course, this is a huge topic, and not every nuance of it can be covered in this video. That's where my next question comes in. What do you think? I'd really like to know. I don't have all the answers, and I'm perfectly fine with that. This should be an ongoing discussion after all, and just having the discussion in the first place is paramount. Just remember that Yusuke said, impurity of the heart will undoubtedly seep onto an artist's canvas eventually. So we should be striving to live lives of generosity and in avoidance of exploiting others. This can absolutely lead to a happier life, and I am, once again, living proof of the matter, but I digress. What are your thoughts? I would love to have a discussion in the comments, as discourse should be alive and well in this world. Even if you disagree, please let me know why. I'm always ready and willing to change my mind when I'm presented with better information, as is the way of science. Healthy debate is never a bad thing, as long as we do things with respect and dignity for our fellow person. If you like this video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up so that the algorithm will hate me slightly less as each day passes. Also, let me know what you think in the comments. I really want to get these messages out there, and I really hope they help at least someone cope with the circumstances of life and to become a better human. Remember, we can all do so much more united than divided. And if you need professional help, please seek it out. I promise you that taking action will make you stronger, not weaker. Also, I release a new club-ready video game remix every other week on Theology Thursday. So if you are into that sort of thing, please hit the bell so you become aware of all the videos that I upload. I release a podcast every month called The Quest Within, formerly the Music and Mental Health Podcast, with a discussion about general mental health topics with my podcast partner, Nathan Ashby, therapists, and other guests alike. In addition, I do a monthly broadcast called In VGM We Trust on Twitch every month. The date varies, where I showcase the latest and greatest in video game remixes. And I also make these What Video Games Taught Me About My Mental Health videos every month. Speaking of, next month, for my 6th video in the series, we'll be talking about video game addiction. Is it a real thing? I aim to find out, as this was the most discussed topic when I gave my video games and mental health panel at 2DCon in August of 2023. The dystopian simulation is a weird place after all, so I can't really blame you for playing video games a bit too much. I really want to dive into this issue and scrutinize it from a deeply scientific angle, as it's something that I feel like a lot of people are dealing with in their lives. Well, before the discussion continues next month, stay strong and remember to take care of each other.